Hey guys, I wanted to take a minute to talk about the $2 trillion corporate bailout again that just passed and have a little bit of nuance on that. So, while I believe it was an entire handout to corporations, and I feel like we should have had more resistance, a lot of the public outcry is to get us something, anything. People need money and they are desperate. And Bernie Sanders is, of course, one of the people being criticized among Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren, I don't consider her a good senator anymore. I used to, but everything she's done since has showed us that she is sold out, that she is no longer a senator that is really putting people first. She's all talk. She goes on and talks a good game against Republicans, but when it comes down to it, she doesn't really push anything that helps the working people. Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, who I believe to be the only senator of any virtue in the entire Senate, which is largely controlled by Republicans, is a little bit different. When I look at Bernie Sanders, I see that he is a fighter, but he is more than a revolutionary. He's a reformist. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that, didn't really realize that up until a certain point. Again, he is more of a reformist than a revolutionary. And what that means is he's trying to get the most that he can out of what he has. And there was a time for people like Bernie Sanders, and I think he is our best hope right now. But I'm obviously far to the left of him, and I don't put it past criticisms to say I wish he would have done resisted a little bit more. But this is coming from, the activist, journalist standpoint. But when it comes to somebody that's in the Senate, somebody that's alone in the Senate, he did the best he could. If he would have voted no, he wouldn't have been able to get the provision he got in there, which was the provision that gave every single unemployed person not only 100% of their unemployment, but $600 in addition to it, as well as health care. And the reality is that is a life-saving thing. It's not anything that is to be ignored. And he is certainly somebody that I think was trying to get something, because he wanted $2,000 for everybody plus the unemployment. And the Republicans are still trying to take away what he proposed. They're still trying to, push more money to corporations and give less money to the poor, because they think of the poor as less. They really do. They, pretty much think it's your fault if you're poor, and that's it. And you deserve nothing. You deserve less. And Bernie's right about that. However, I would like him to criticize the Democrats more. I would like him to have a little bit of understanding, and I think he does have the understanding, but he is somehow trying to work within the Democratic Party, and we know that that's not going to work. He needs to understand that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are a huge part of the problem, and that they are essentially part of the reason why we're not getting what we need. Nancy Pelosi put in her provision for the Kennedy Foundation, and it was a lot of money, and we're not even getting like a fraction of that money. Hospitals aren't getting nearly enough money. But what I suspect is that the Senate and the House are going to have to put out another bill, because what's happening is Donald Trump is threatening to lift the quarantine. However, we're just at the beginning of the stages of the pandemic, and it's only getting worse, and the numbers are only getting worse, and we're not even giving everybody tests, which means that the amount of people who are infected is severely underreported. And this is just the beginning for us. All of the other countries have pretty much passed the climax, except maybe a few. And we are, just at the beginning of this whole situation. And so I believe they're going to pass something else. And I think Bernie Sanders just wanted to get what he could. I don't think he sold us out. I disagree with several other independent media people who have said that. I think he did what he could do being one person. And the reality is, if we are upset at him, we should let him know. If we think more should be done, we should let them know. But the reality is, we're in this oligarchy where psychopaths run our government. And how does that change? It changes by electing new people. And how does that change? Either through the Democratic Party, which is what we tried. It didn't work. Why? Because they cheat and they lie. And then they co-opt our movement, which is what's happening. And so we realized that the only way is to maybe have some people who, who are reformists doing their thing inside the party. But the majority of us need to leave the party after Bernie Sanders is done with this, whether he's a president or whether especially if he isn't. We need to have a Dem exit movement. And I'm not saying it has to be led by one person, like Movement for the People's Party. It has to be led by everybody, like the working people. It has to be a movement like that. It can't have be akin to any one leader. We need to stop putting leaders and politicians edifying them and putting them on a pedestal and acting like they're celebrities for doing their job. And so, I think that's the next step, and that's what we're going to have to do. A lot of people can be angry at Sanders because he is the guy that has fought against all of these things that are happening, but he is one guy in an entire house of snakes and just evil, and there's only so much he can do. And we have the Congress people like Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and I don't always agree with them on everything, but they were trying. They tried. Tulsi Gabbard tried with her UBI. I mean, these are people that are actually pushing legislation, so I applaud that, or co-sponsoring it. And the reality is that it's not enough because there's not enough of us, and it's going to take too long for more of us to infiltrate, right? We have, less than 10 years? So we don't have time for incrementalism anymore. And I applaud the people who have come before us and have done this work and had incrementalism work for them, but it is no longer attainable. It is no longer sustainable in the climate that we have. So I just want to throw a little bit of nuance there as somebody that understands electoral politics and isn't just on the ground. It requires a little bit of both to grasp what went on here, because believe me, that's not the bill that any of us wanted. It's not even close. It's an insult, and we should all be outraged. Let's point our outrage at the system. Let's point our outrage at the inadequacy of our elections, the inadequacy of our government. And Bernie Sanders, once again, needs to call out the elections. And as long as he doesn't do that, he has a very slim chance of winning. And I'll be the first one to say it. Let's fight back and push back against this idea that Joe Biden, who is accused as a rapist, accuses somebody that has multiple assaults and accusers, who is not mentally there, who will veto Medicare for all, who has policies that are typical to the neoliberal policies that got us in this mess, and we can't have that. He was there during the 2008 bailout. He didn't do anything. And so our focus has to be on the system. We need to change the system, and the only way to change it right now, I believe genuinely, is to let the Democratic Party burn to the ground. They nominate Joe Biden, we're done with the Democratic Party, we walk out, we're done. That's it. No more Democratic Party for us, and I vow to do that. If and when Bernie Sanders endorses Joe Biden, I will say, sorry, Bernie, I'm leaving the Democratic Party. You are an independent. You taught me this. I will never work with the Democrats because I don't believe they're any much better than the Republicans. They really aren't. They just pretend. Republicans are flat out racist. The Democrats turn around and they enact racist policies. They just say that they're not and that they're inclusive. I mean, just look at what's happening to Joe Biden's accuser. They're accusing her of being Putin's puppet. So when we look at the bill, we need to continue pushing, calling for a rent strike, saying we're not going to participate in the economy. If we can do that, I advise everybody to do that. I'm prepared to do that. And I'm willing, as a younger person who doesn't have children, to be able to do something like that. And I think more of us should. And I think we need to start organizing, as many of us are, to have some sort of protest, some sort of situation going on in Milwaukee or beyond that, because during a quarantine we obviously can't protest, but we physically, but we can have a renter strike, which is what we should be doing. We can stop participating in the economy, and we can demand our politicians give us more, or we just stop. Again, the working class is the backbone of society, right? We are the backbone. Think about it as our backs are carrying the rest of these elites. And the moment we decide to stand up and stop doing all the work and getting little in return or nothing, is when everything stops. And there's nothing more powerful than the numbers that we have. We have the numbers. We have the mission. We need to actually do it. And we can start by not participating in the economy and the sham that it is, and just doing what we can with what is being given, but demanding more. And I suspect it's not going to be enough. I suspect things will get a lot worse, and they're going to have to work on this, because the reality is, if the economy, if you're not putting enough money back in the hands of the people, the economy isn't going to get better. It's going to get better on the market for a short time, but then it's going to go back because we're not going to be participating in the economy. So just wanted to mention that, and that's why I am actually proud of Bernie for putting this provision in there, because it really directly affects people like me who don't necessarily have a 9-to-5 job with insurance, and it really, really is helping me and a lot of people I know a lot. Without that, I don't think you would have voted for it, but that's the thing. People need something, and I think, as horrible as it is, we're not going to stop these politicians from giving Republicans or Democrats from giving these corporations money. We're just not going to do it until we change the system, get money out of politics. You know, you have to do the foundations first. There's no way they're not gonna do that. Not under a capitalist system. This is what capitalism is. This is why I don't believe in capitalism. So thanks you guys for watching. Bye.